please.
This is the Oversight Committee. It's supposed to be somewhat uncomfortable. It's kind of where we go to ask really difficult questions. I know that in the past, there have been other chairs of the Oversight Committee where they didn't meet, no questions were asked. And at least for the next 16 months, that's not going to be the case.
Part 2.
The next thing we should talk about, Kevin, is the Quincy Housing Authority section of the meeting. This is something that Councilor Jacobs wanted to talk about because some of the affected people are Ward 1, and they, from what I understand, they've approached him looking for help with representation there. So here's what prompted the discussion. This is what it's all about. Councilor Jacobs, first of all, he reminds people that the council tabled several housing authority appointments back in March. And they tabled them because they wanted more information. And they asked the administration for information about the nominees and documentation showing that the tenant representative appointment complied with state law. Jacobs said that 3 months later, the council still hadn't received the information it's requested. And that's what we were just talking about. But Chris Walker pushed back. He argued that while there had been earlier questions, the council adopted a much broader records request just last week, and that the administration is still reviewing that order before responding.
I'm an assistant. I'm going to put on my work hat for a second. All right. So it's the end of the school year, right? Who's coming up to me every 5 seconds? I need extra time for this. I need extra time for that, right? So, and I say to them, you know, you can have that time, but I like to put it right back on the students. How much time do you need? So I'm going to ask, how much time do you need to get the documents that we've requested?
There's two things. First, there's what was in the actual order and whether or not all of that documentation was properly requested. Secondly, the base level information that you have sought, I think will most certainly be ready to go in the fall.
Okay, so there's one piece of information that I would like immediately, and we did talk about this offline earlier, is the letters that went out to the tenant agencies. Because you know, you said you could get that for me tomorrow.
I believe so.
Okay, so you believe so, or it's going to happen?
This is, Mr. Chan, this is not a court of law.
Yeah, well, no, because I just want, because the thing is according to state law, you have to let that sit for 90 days. So what I'm saying is if the letter doesn't exist, we should get that letter out ASAP. So that way at the end of the summer, the 90 days, you know, we get to the end of September, the 90 days has gone by. That's why I'm looking for that letter, so we can actually make sure we're following the state law. So do we think we can have that letter tomorrow?
We believe so.
And if the letter was not produced or can't be produced, would the administration be amenable to producing a letter and starting the nomination process over for the?
Look, again, the order is not properly before this body as it was submitted last week because it has not been signed. Whether or not it's a proper order or not is being reviewed. If that's the direction we're going, we'll file what we need to file and we're ready to go in the fall. I would just say from a practical perspective that the mayor's appointees are already sitting. They've been sitting. These are follow-up terms. The mayor's appointees succeed until their successors are appointed. If this body does not choose to confirm those appointees, those members are still members of the body.
Correct, but we still need to make sure we're following the state law, which says that when their term expires, which was on February 2nd, 90 days before that, we were going to submit a letter to the 10 or 11 tenant agencies in Quincy Housing, which we're required to do by law. And as far as I know, from the tenant agencies I've talked to, they did not receive a letter. So that's why I'm trying to confirm if a letter exists. So I'm hoping, I am hoping that we can get that tomorrow. So that way, if we don't have it, if for some reason it doesn't exist, and again, as you said, it's not really a huge deal because the members are already sitting, but we can at least get the ball rolling so that we can come into compliance with state law.
Here's what I think about what's happening here. It's an uncomfortable conversation. I think Councilor Jacobs was trying to make it less uncomfortable and it didn't work, but I don't think they're arguing about a letter. They are, but I don't think that's really what's being argued here. It's about whether the administration is following through with and respecting council's position here, because he made the request for documentation like 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And it's not been responded to. And at one point, I think he says that the mayor has not signed off on the response, which I think is disturbing. Why is that the case? It almost feels personal. I think if you're Councilor Jacobs, I would imagine it almost feels a little personal. Like, wait a minute here. How come something that I respectfully asked for 3 months ago that you're saying is not that complicated? How come we don't have it already? And then,
here's Councilor Yuan on basically how they've been waiting to hear.
Thank you, Chairman. So I would like let a resident know how this confirmation process is. So in March, administration just sent 2 orders, ask City Council to confirm 2 appointees of the housing board member with no CV, no information whatever, and just give to City Council, say confirm it. Confirm what? I would like to ask Ms. Walker, is that the standard practice of the administration, just submit to order, say confirm these 2 appointees with no information whatever? How do we know these 2 appointees CV, previous experience, qualification? And I know why you are not rushed, because without a confirmation, since they are incumbent, they can still sit on that seat, keep connecting compensations. Doesn't matter you confirm or not confirm. So the whole confirmation process is become a ceremonial. But we don't want to, this City Council don't want to just do ceremonial work. We want to really, if you want to me confirm, give me information. Let's check if this one is qualified. Otherwise, how can we confirm it?
So that's Councilor Yuan, obviously voicing her frustration with the whole process from the administration.
yeah, and she's right. The Quincy Housing Authority has a board, and the appointment process is done by the mayor. So what I find fascinating about this discussion is that it exposes a real tension in the appointment process. The city council is being asked to confirm the mayor's appointments to this housing authority board, but the current members will continue to serve until the successors are appointed and qualified. So if the mayor is simply reappointing the same people, the council is in a difficult position. So if it asks for more information, like their CV, their qualifications, etc., the incumbents stay in office. If it votes them down, the incumbents will stay in office. And if it votes for them, the same people stay in office. So in practical terms, the status quo continues either way. That's why Councilor Yuan is describing the process as feeling ceremonial. The council technically has a confirmation role, but its ability to influence the composition of the board might be more limited than residents might expect. In the end, no documents are produced, no appointments are confirmed, and the issue was pushed to September. And like I said earlier, like a lot of this, it's not really about the appointments, it's about transparency, accountability, and whether the council can get the information it needs to do the oversight it was sent there to do by the voters.
Right. And Deb Riley did bring up, some of these boards have had the same members for seemingly the length of Mayor Koch's term, right? Why aren't they changing hands? And
It's not always a good thing to have people sitting in the same position forever and ever. I mean, they get complacent. It's more likely you'll see sweetheart deals and rules bent. You should be refreshing these boards. Absolutely.
the next section or next segment I want to talk about is Yuan's transparency ordinance. And I don't think we have to play any clips, but I'll just read a bit from Scott Jackson of the Quincy Sun. City councilors unanimously passed an ordinance to safeguard transparency, public access to information, and democratic participation in city council proceedings. The ordinance requires that written or electronic material prepared for, submitted to, or presented to the city council in connection with an agenda item be posted online the same time the agenda is posted. Materials not posted on time shall not be introduced, presented, or relied upon during a city council meeting. Councilor McKee said this is an ordinance to try to ensure that we have everything posted on the website 48 hours in advance of the meeting. So if there is any additional supplemental material, that will go online for everyone in the public to see. Any thoughts on that? I mean, it seems kind of a no-brainer to me, but
it is a no-brainer, but it's actually a huge shift in how our government works. You know, before this council took over, they used to waive the readings of ordinances.
2024-087 order.
Motion to waive the reading, motion to approve by Councilor Liang. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Number 12, 2024-088.
Motion to waive the reading, motion to approve by Councilor Harris.
2018-159.
Motion to waive the reading.
Motion made by Councilor Kane, the Finance Chair, to waive the reading.
Mr. President, motion to waive the reading and motion to approve.
And you wouldn't even know what they were discussing, you know, or what they were voting on, because they used to say, they'd waive the reading of the ordinance and then they'd go right to a motion to pass or motion. And the public was often lost. And now they don't do that. Now they read the ordinances out in an open meeting. And secondly, now they're trying to go a step further. They're trying to make sure that all the supplementary documents that they have access to is up online at least 48 hours before the meeting. And this is great because people can now come to the meeting armed with information. So if you want to get up at open forum and speak to something that's happening later in that meeting, you can, and you can speak intelligently about it because you're not guessing, you know, or trying to do your own research on a topic, or you can still do your own research on a topic, but you at least know everything the council knows. And that's a huge shift.
I agree, because sometimes they've shown up and there's been things on their desk that they didn't know about. And I think in the budget, also Councilor Yuan brought up that, you know, a lot of her questions were based on knowledge, and then she gets there and there's all these other calculations that she.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about that last time.
Right. They are making some progress. I know it probably feels like they're hitting their head against the wall, but they are changing things for the better.
They are. They absolutely are. And I hear people online saying, well, what has this council done? They've done a lot. They really have. And the open forum is the biggest shift, in my opinion. You know, I remember last year or the year before, it was when it came to the discussion of the raises and the deferment. I remember Scott Jackson of the Quincy Sun asked Ian Kane, you know, the people who are upset about this raise thing, they keep asking for a public hearing. They want to be able to get up and speak. And Councilor Kane said, I don't think that's how our form of government works, which I couldn't believe he said it. I don't understand what he was getting at. But they, you know, for everyone who's upset with this council, who thinks that they're rude, who thinks that they are obstructionists and they just hate the mayor and they don't, whatever. For all these people, well, guess what? Half of the people that get up at open forum and speak are critical towards this council, but they still want to hear from them. The previous councils didn't want to hear from anyone, good or bad. This council wants to hear from you. They know that some nights they're going to get lit up by the comments, and they still want you to be able to do it. So, like this council or not, they've improved things just by doing that one thing. And like we were saying here, they've done several things.
But I think the next segment I want to talk about is the salary ordinance, which I think you know more about than I do.
So now we are moving into the ordinances for the raises that were passed in 2024. I had a bunch of different versions of this because I was struggling to understand like whether we could repeal something, et cetera. The importance of the word repeal to me was because I was concerned about pension issues, that there existed a law that said the salary is a certain amount, and how that would affect the pension. So Solicitor Timmons asked the Quincy Retirement Board for clarification on this point and sent an email where the interim executive director of the Quincy Retirement System, Anthony Sarnacchiaro, said, "You are correct. The mayor's retirement allowance will be calculated based on his 3 highest years of regular compensation received, for which he received creditable service, and not the amount in the ordinance."
Finally, someone weighed in officially on the pension, how the pension's calculated for the mayor.
Yeah. What happened here was Councilor McKee made a compromise. She had wanted the word repeal in her ordinance. And the main reason she wanted the word repeal was she didn't want there to be a possibility that later on Mayor Koch or one of the councilors could go to the retirement board and say, while I was in office, the ordinance said this is what I should be making. I think my pension should be calculated off of that amount because that is what the law said I should be making. I was giving the city a discount, but I don't think my pension should suffer because of that. That's the scenario that Councilor McKee was concerned with. Solicitor Timmons was adamant that there was problems with the word repeal. Councilor McKee got creative. She went a different way. And she said, okay, let's confirm that my nightmare scenario I just described isn't going to happen. So if she couldn't confirm it by using the word repeal, which she felt would undo the raises in such a way that that claim couldn't be done, she went a different way. And through Solicitor Timmons, got confirmation that the pension will be calculated based off of what was actually in the paycheck. But can I point out something that's not in the clip that I found funny?
Yeah.
So during this discussion, Councilor Hubley says something interesting. He says,
I came in prepared to support the contention that Solicitor Timmons said about the repeal things. I reached out to other people and work in municipals and talked to one that's been on for like 17 years or so. He was like, yeah, if you do the repeal thing, that will kind of wipe everything out. So I'm very happy to hear that tonight I want to commend Chair McKee for collaborating with Mr. Timmons and following his guidance. I think that's a good example of working together with the administration, so I appreciate that.
Number one, Solicitor Timmons lambasted Councilor McKee for getting an outside opinion that no one knew about. And so Councilor Hubley does the same thing and no one's concerned. Solicitor Timmons is not saying, I need to know who you spoke with. That was an ex parte. And if you're not going to tell us who that is, then that's troubling. None of that. Okay. And secondly, I can't find anyone who agrees with Solicitor Timmons. And I have been doing a lot of asking around. So I wish that Councilor Hubley would let us know who he was speaking with, because I'd like to get their opinion and understand uh, if there's anything to Solicitor Timmons' concern that if you use the word repeal, that you can actually end up zeroing out the mayor's salary, because it sounds ridiculous to me.
It does sound ridiculous, and I think that's a fair point you brought up. I didn't consider that. The next part I wanted to bring up, though, was Councilor DeBona on the mayor's suggestion of 225,000 and how the council should just go with that and call it a day, basically. I'll just play that clip quickly, and then Councilor Mahoney's rebuttal.
You know, what's weird to me is the mayor stated in October 2025 that he was going to come in with the lower amount from 285 to 225, and with the condition that he wouldn't proceed with anything until the new term had come in, and whomever the new councilors are going to be would have an opportunity to speak about the $225,000 adjustment. So Council Order 2026-012 came in on January 20th of 2026 with this new council. So it's $60,000 less of what is the $285,000 proposal. So the mayor, had already suggested that he wanted to go down to his salary to 225. So what confuses me is, why don't we just talk about that? Why do we have to do this?
So
I just wanted to play that clip.
Yeah.
So, and then I'll just play Councilor Mahoney's rebuttal. We can talk about it on the other side.
So the facts are that there was one report, and this council said yes to that one report for 285, and the public really was upset. There was a signature drive, and that's also out there, but that was to 183. The mayor did put his own ordinance in for 225, and he did defer his salary, is what he was calling a deferral. Where we're at right now is you have an ordinance on the table that says the mayor's salary is at 285. We're going to amend, delete that salary back to the 150. So we'll be at 183 to 225. And that's phase 2 of this. This is really just bookkeeping to make sure that we're taking care of this. The big question that we had here was the word repeal. I think that's all fixed now. So this just simply takes it back to the same place it was, where currently Mayor Koch is being paid. And I think the conversations that we have to have here in the council have to happen in the next 6 months so that we can come to that conclusion as to what the salaries will be for both council and for the mayor. And the job of this council is to come up with the data that actually supports what that salary is going to be.
Well, I think Councilor Mahoney summed it up great. I'm going to give you my personal opinion on what Councilor DeBona had to say. I don't think it was very genuine. I think Councilor DeBona was kind of playing dumb there a little bit. He knows exactly why they were repealing the salary. He's been around. He knows the history, the mayor's raise drama. We know he knows that because last November on election night, he was on QATV apologizing to the people of Quincy for not doing more to stand up to the raises. So he knows what he's talking about.
Right.
Elsewhere in his remarks that night, he was acting surprised that they plan on discussing the new raise in the fall. It's just not genuine. I don't buy it for a second. I think it was just another attempt to kind of like stir the pot for his own reasons, and it's too bad because it's not a good use of his time as a counselor.
I will say that I also think the mayor's suggestion of 225 was somewhat disingenuous because it happened days before the election.
That's right.
He's trying to save the election.
Yeah, what was happening there was the mayor who had been absolutely not willing to listen to criticism about his salary up until that point, finally realized, because he pays like $10,000 a month or more to political consultants if you look at his OCPF report. He finally realized that this election wasn't going his way, that he was going to lose some of his allies on city council. Probably still didn't know he was going to lose as many as he did, but he knew it wasn't going well, and he wanted to save some of those counselors. And so he knew that the raises were a driving factor, and so he came in with a lower number, and I think he was hoping to take the raise drama off the voters' plate so that they might go in and vote for their favorite incumbents once again. But it was too little and it was too late because people saw through it. They saw that what he was trying to do there, and it didn't work. Had he done it 2 or 3 months earlier and it had time to get into the public, maybe it would have had an effect. But a week before the election, absolutely not. It did not work. You know, that we had to do like this outcry after the election to convince the lame duck counselors not to pass it before the new counselors come in.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
if anyone remembers that, that was like we had people writing their counselors saying, don't do anything with that. We are sending new counselors to city council to take care of this. We want them to do it.
That, right?
Right. Which is what they're doing. They're undoing the raise. And then in the fall, they're going to have a new process. They're going to hopefully lay down a precedent for the city for how to handle these raises going forward. It'll probably end up being some sort of automatic cost of living increase like other positions get. But they're going to show like the Dormanson report, which came out 2 years ago, which is what the new raises were based off of, didn't compare mayors to mayors. It was not an apples to apples report. They took a different type of fruit. They took town managers and they used their salaries and made the case that the mayor should be paid like a town manager. But he still wants the power and safety of being mayor. If you're a town manager, you're married to one. You can lose your job if suddenly found your city, let's say $2 billion in debt. You could lose your job if you're a town manager. They are paid differently because it's a different type of position. And the mayor wanted to basically have the prestige, the gravitas, the cachet of being mayor of Quincy, but to be paid as a town manager because that's how he feels it should be handled. So anyway, I'm glad they repealed it.
Here's a big question for you. How do you think they'll stall it in September?
I don't know. They're going to be 6 months into the job. I think this council is probably going to get better at staying focused because they're going to see through some of these distractions.
I think you're right. I think they're going to go in there in September and basically, this is our priority. This is what we're going to deal with. Everything else is on the back burner till we get this out of the way.
But they don't have to rush it either because these raises can't take effect until after another election anyway. So what I think they should do is they're going to have public hearings so that people can get up, and if you want to make the case that the mayor should be paid $300,000, you will have your opportunity to do so. So get your talking points ready. There will also be a better analysis, apples to apples, on what this position should actually pay.
I agree. And then, so the other thing that happened was Councilor DeBona did become irritated with the talk of the city council raises and what they want to do with them. Do you want to hear a clip?
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate you amending this and writing it a little bit differently, which is good. Let's take a step back here. Let's go into this one a little bit here. You write in here the deferment letter, which was not aware of the new city councilors because it was confidential at the time. So all city 9 councilors signed it. They were deferring their raise back in October of 2024 to be pushed to January of 2026. That's if you won the seat. And we did that. Take it a step further with the deliberations of that salary. It was originally salaried at $47,500. The motion was made by Councilor Ash to decrease it $33,000. I seconded it, and it became 44,500. So clarification purposes, there was discussion. We knocked it down 3,000. It got to 44,500. Only two people that got it was me and Mr. Ash, because everybody else had been unseated. So just, I think, and it's funny because I was over the summer, and he's sitting in the audience tonight. I ran into Mr. Mike Cotter at Stop and Shop. I was getting groceries. I was coming out this summer. He was getting ballot initiatives, signatures. He directly said to me that I'm okay with the salaries of the counselors. I think you deserve it. He also stated a step further that he was okay with the school committee at $20,000. Now, no one ever talks about the school committee's increase 3 years ago that went from $9,000 to $20,000, which is more than doubled. No one speaks about it. It's unheard of. But he was okay with it. He said those two salaries, school committee and city council, should be those rates, should be that salary. So I said, thank you. We had a conversation.
Oh, sorry.
But that was our conversation. I had it that summer, just for clarification purposes.
Okay.
So.
Councilor DeBona, if you wouldn't mind, we do have to get through. Is there?
Oh, I haven't talked all night. I let you guys deliberate. And to be very honest with you, I have a rule book here, and Rule 10 says I have up to 15 minutes to speak. I'm going to speak about this matter as long as I can, or I need to. I got 15 minutes in the book. And it also says Rule 11, speaking decorum. No member shall interrupt while speaking. I'm not finished. I'm talking about this item that's on the table right now.
Okay.
I have that right.
Okay. I
Okay.
apologize. Go ahead.
Right. I didn't speed anybody up that went over 15 minutes on all these other deliberations. But for this one, I don't feel like we should do this. Now, is this another one we're going to revisit in September?
All of them. So all of the ones that we're dealing with tonight is kind of bookkeeping. And then we're going to discuss with data what the salary raises should be, because nobody thinks that there shouldn't be a salary raise for the council or the mayor. It's just, I think the process was not one that was clear, transparent, and involved public input.
But there was nothing that was done that was wrong. But we deliberated about it in the city council, this particular item.
It was voted on, but there wasn't public input.
Did it exist back then?
Well, there were many requests for public hearing on this issue, and they were denied. And
who was the council president? Who was the ordinance chair? Who was the finance chair? That's like me telling you, or Councilor Mahoney, or President Mahoney, or Councilor Riley, I don't like the way you're running these meetings. I want to oppose them.
So I think what we have before us, this ordinance. We have a motion on the table. We will get back to what level they should be in the fall, but I would respectfully request that we keep our comments very specific to this ordinance right now.
Okay, I'm almost done. Thank you. But I'm not going to support this. I mean, you have a situation where you're kind of going backwards here. This has already been initiated. This is another one I don't understand. I really don't, but I appreciate you coming back in September and revisiting this.
I don't know, do you want to talk about it and use whatever you want to use or nothing at all?
I hope over the summer that Councilor DeBona finds some peace with this situation, because some of this just is more of him being mad about some perceived slight that happened sometime between election day and the council being seated. And he mentioned it one night that he mentioned not being given a chair of one of those committees. And I guess what I said earlier still holds. I don't think he's being genuine. I think Councilor DeBona feels strongly that the raise was just. I think he doesn't like that it's getting lumped in with the mayor's raise. Maybe you know this, Kevin, but does the council decide the school committee salary?
No, not at
No,
all.
I didn't think so. That's a school committee issue, right?
Exactly, and the mayor floats it to them. I think he floated it when Ann was on school committee and asked them if they would all want to raise or something of a certain amount, and I think they all said, no, not in this current situation, whatever.
No. He's saying that no one's complaining about the school committee raise. He's not wrong. I didn't notice when it went by. I was distracted apparently. I don't know that I would have cared because we're talking about, 9,000 versus 20,000 versus, 150 to almost 300,000. That
Right.
They're two different scales. And he knows that though. He knows that. He knows why people are upset. He
And
apologized for it.
Nobody's saying that these positions don't deserve a raise.
Yeah, but
Just
that's
the amount and the process.
But there's a straw man argument that people love to bring up. I had somebody bringing up on an Adjust Quincy comment. Why don't you think the mayor deserves a raise? He's only had one raise his whole time. Why don't you think that's okay? And I'm saying you're arguing against the wrong point, intentionally, of course.
Yeah.
No one has said there shouldn't be a raise. What they're saying is it shouldn't be an 80% raise. And we've always been consistent about that. We think the mayor deserves a raise. In fact,
it should be the position, not the mayor himself.
Exactly.
That point keeps getting confused also.
That does too. I always said to people when I was like out collecting petitions, I said, tell me this. The mayor's last opponent was Ann Mahoney. If Ann Mahoney was in office right now, would you support a $285,000 salary? And of course, 100% of the people said, no, definitely not. And it's like, then you can't support it here either because it's about the position. The mayor's not going to be mayor forever. And you can't make up for lost time with these raises. You've got to set it to the right spot. And that's where the analysis failed. It was pretty clear to me that the Dormanson people worked backwards from a range that the mayor wanted it to be in. They didn't do a true analysis, in my opinion. They were working backwards from a conclusion already.
Yeah, I always say to Ann when she's conflicted about some of these things or some of these people that are arguing, we love Quincy, they love Coke.
For some people, that's very true.
So the last segment, believe it or not, we're getting to the last segment, Joe.
Yeah.
They finally passed the strengthening the auditor. What do you think about that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's another one that, along with Councilor Yuan's material out to the public quicker and along with open forum, this is another huge improvement. The auditor is like the main way this council can get information about the spending in the budget. And she sits there at every meeting for a reason. She's there at every meeting because it was anticipated that the council was going to need someone who understands the budget there to answer their questions. Ever since the mayor kind of redid that position and created the Department of Municipal Finance, that position has not had the importance that it should. And so they're trying to fix that. And I think it's great. I think it's going to make a huge difference.
Yeah, so just one couple things. So the ordinance states the auditor shall have unrestricted authority to examine, audit, and evaluate all books, contracts, records, accounts, financial systems, obligations and expenditures of every department, board, office, authority, enterprise fund, and capital project of the city for the purpose of ensuring fiscal accountability, legal compliance, and the effective use of public funds. So, it's a major accomplishment.
I think that's another thing that gives the council the strength they need to do what the voters asked them to do. So that's good.
So, Joe, I think that does it for this segment and probably our first season.
But there is something that we missed, Kevin, and that was, I don't know how we missed it because
that's my fault. Yeah.
It's become a staple of every city council meeting, is the obligatory open meeting law violation complaint.
Exactly.
So during that, there was those complaints in the prior city council meetings. You'll recall that Solicitor Timmons had to kind of admit that there was nothing wrong with what Councilor McKee did as far as consulting a lawyer. He had to admit that, but he kind of changed what he was saying. He said, "Oh, I really wasn't saying that's the problem. What I was saying was that this ordinance was passed around the council before the meeting, and there was red lines on it, and it became all about this red line document that had been emailed to the councilors." And so, you know, of the 4 people that made an open meeting law complaint that Councilor McKee had consulted a lawyer, one of them followed the new logic of the solicitor and updated, or actually I think it was a whole new open meeting law complaint about this redlined Word file that Clerk Manning had sent out to the council. And you're right, Councilor Mahoney brought it up again. You know, sunshine being the best disinfectant, and you know, basically talked about the complaint and said nobody responded. I'm not actually sure what her reasoning was, but she basically said, just like with most of these complaints, there's no violation of the open meeting law here.
Right.
Okay, so Anne laid it out pretty methodically. She said the only issue before council is deliberation. If there's no deliberation, there's no application of the open meeting law. And that's been true for most of these, and that's why there's not been any open meeting law violation found when they review these. All that happened was the amendments were submitted to the clerk, so there was no evidence of any kind of discussion, changing opinions, no one was replying, no one was discussing the merits or trying to reach consensus. All it was the amendments were distributed so that people can read them before the meeting, and that has been recognized by the SJC as an acceptable, normal thing to have happen. Distribution isn't deliberation. That's basically the takeaway here. So, and then she closed with a caution. Even though there was no violation, she said the council remained committed to transparency and open meeting law compliance, and they would continue to exercise care regarding these materials going forward.
Yeah. Like you said, sunshine's the best disinfectant, and if they're gonna have open meeting complaints, they're gonna air them out in public, I guess.
Yeah.
And it seems like most of these are failing, or all of them have failed so far, I think.
Well, I mean, they failed at the council level. We did get, interesting enough, I wrote about it in a Just Quincy's newsletter. Ann Walker, you'll recall, she had an open meeting law violation complaint because Ann Mahoney had interrupted her to say, please direct your comments to the body or to the chair, not to individual counselors. That's a very standard practice that's found in Robert's Rules of Order. And Ann Walker took offense to that, and so she filed an open meeting law violation, and the council found that that's not an open meeting law violation. Maybe it's something else, but it's certainly not an open meeting law violation. And this week, the Attorney General office published their determination, and it was what they call a declination, which means they declined to review it because of just what the city council had come to the same conclusion. There's no open meeting law violation alleged here.
Yeah, that's great. She liked to come to the open forum and scream at the council. Said she had involvement in government. She's a former select board member in Mansfield. Her name was something different then, and Baldwin, I believe. Should look her up sometime.
Yeah. Now we're ready, Kevin. Take us out for the summer.
All right, Joe. So it's been a short 4 episodes, but I know it's been a long council season. So I think that does it for this season on.
City Minutes.
Thanks, everybody.
See you in the summer.